It really hit me today just how over everything is and how the future is over. And that there's just really not that much of a good future to look forward to at this point. And I know every individual situation is different. There are definitely people of all ages and various nationalities who are doing just fine, some who are doing exceptionally well. But it looks like generally that's not the case, especially not for younger people and even middle aged people. So, say if you're between 20 to 40, you're probably struggling with at least a few things, if not a lot of things. And I mean things that once upon a time were taken for granted, such as, a decent job, being able to pay your bills, of course, being able to buy a house, being able to get married or have a stable relationship or have a family, to be able to afford kids at all. And it just really all comes back to there's not any stability now. And without stability, people don't build. They can't build, right? I mean, if you're going to build a life, you've got to have a stable foundation to put it on. If you start building something and then it gets wiped out within a year, then after a while you just quit trying to put down roots. You quit trying to lay a foundation. You quit trying to build a life on it. And people react to that in different ways, but they're not good. I mean, some people will just disengage and give up. Some people will play pretend for a while. Some people will LARP. Some people will go into denial or grief about it and pretend that, the good times will come back, stuff like that. But really, the big problem we have to face now is what do you ultimately do if you're trying to build a future, if you need a future, if you need more from life, but there's no stability and you can't afford to live, you can't afford even a basic life, or you struggle to afford even a basic life, then what do you do? I mean, if you look around and if you look at the numbers, the story is looking really grim now. We're seeing many countries in the world, especially the developed countries, get older. They're graying because people are not able to have kids. And when you don't have kids, you don't have a culture. And when you don't have a culture, you don't have a society. You don't have a country. You don't have a future. You don't have an economy. You don't have much of anything to look forward to. And so basically, what's happening all over the world is people are coping in various ways with being deprived of their future hope. And, this is really, it's one of those things that has taken many forms over the years. I mean, we've heard about things like deaths of despair, which is basically what that is. Or you've heard of people who've just given up looking for a job and so they don't get counted in the unemployment statistics. That's what that is. They've dropped out of the dating market. That's what that is. They've become anti-natalist. That's, in many cases, I think, what that is. People have succumbed to various kinds of addictions, such as adult content, substances, and even things like gambling, which has become, that vice has made a very big resurgence. And I think that is probably part of it too. It's people are looking for the magic ticket, which of course will never arrive because they have lost hope in the future. And so it's just this mentality of, well, I'm basically going to gamble or play the lottery or take a stupid chance because I don't have a chance anyway. So I think these things and many other things have just they've manifested in the world because people have lost hope, they've lost stability, they've lost purpose, they've lost meaning. And those things have just been relentlessly stripped away from us and replaced with things that don't help at all and actually hurt us. I mean, it's really crazy when you think about it because, like, from my perspective, when I see these things, when I see people talking about, how they're going to bet on this game or they're going to go back to school because they can't get a job right now or, YOLO into something in the stock market, I really just think it always ultimately comes back to they don't have hope, they don't have purpose, they don't have a future, there's no stability to really build on, and so this is what they turn to. And, these copes will work for a while, but they do eventually run out, and you realize how empty your life is. And so that is the great struggle of this postmodern age is what do you do when the game is already over? Or what do you do when, for a lot of people now, the game never really got started in the first place? And it turns out that the answer is tragically, the answer is tragic in many cases. And there will always be some people out there claiming, oh, no, it's fine. I like it. I like the solitude. I like being alone. I like not having any responsibilities. I like not, having any involvement with society or the world, or, I hate people. And look, I'm no big fan of people either, or at least not most people. But I do think most of those things ultimately are a kind of coping mechanism too, because ultimately people are social creatures, and they do want to have good relationships, they do want to marry and procreate, they do want to be part of communities and families, and have that kind of life. I mean, if you could really choose whatever you wanted just out of hand, I think the vast majority of people would pick to have that as opposed to a life of isolation and no interaction and things like that. But unfortunately, at this point in history, for many people, life is going to be lonely. Life is going to be isolating. Life is going to be disappointing. Life is going to be bitter. A lot of things that were both taken for granted and practical, like having a community around you or having a village around you, something like that, having that kind of natural and humane support structure in your life it's been completely dismantled. And, then of course, I haven't even touched on yet about how artificial intelligence and advanced robotics are going to utterly add to this and sort of prolong the misery that the world finds itself in now. And I mean, you think a world that's still dominated by people can be lonely and disappointing and bitter and tedious and all this stuff, and you're right, but a world where people are being phased out for machines to take their place is just going to be the same thing on steroids. It's going to exacerbate it in ways that humanity has never dealt with before. And, I know I'm a little bit premature in saying this, but we're going to get to the point where AI and robotics are going to become one and the same. They're going to be intelligent robots that are doing things that right now they can't do, but they will get there. And people are scrambling now to find something that AI can't do that only humans can do right now, which there are some things, to be fair. And I'll probably make some videos about that in the future. Or people are, thinking about, what could a robot not do? And right now, robots have not been phased into the workforce yet and into society yet, but they are coming. They already exist. The main problem is, as I see it, refining them and making them cost effective. But those are problems that are constantly being worked out. So this is coming. And like I said, if you think the world is lonely and bitter and difficult and tedious now, just wait until an AI robot is the only one you have to talk to around the proverbial water cooler. If you're even there at that job still to hang out around the water cooler. And like I said, this is going to make the loneliness and the isolation and the giving up and the disengaging from society even more extreme. And you're going to have robots doing things that you couldn't imagine anyone but a human being doing. Like, for example, I believe we will probably in the next decade or so have robotic caretakers. We may have robotic teachers. And then, people or robotic nurses, things like that. And people are right now, they're scrambling to think about what AI and robots can't do. And, the trades come up a lot. Well, guess what? Robots are going to be improved to the point where they'll be able to do plumbing, they'll be able to do electrical work, they'll be able to do HVAC, they'll be able to do construction. Now they'll get to some of those faster than others, and they'll do some better than others, at least at first, but it's going to be a continual process of refining them and pushing out people more and more. At least this is where the potential seems to be going. So, just think about how, say, the Rust Belt in the U.S. or, Appalachia, or these little towns that are, dot the map, and how these places were abandoned, and how their jobs were shipped overseas and their factories closed down and sent abroad, and how all these people were just abandoned, for the last, 50 years or so. And now imagine the entire world becoming like that, because that seems to be what we're getting to. A few years ago, those kinds of places were talked about for having a lot of deaths of despair, overdoses and people giving up and unaliving themselves because they had just had their hope and their meaning and their purpose and their futures utterly stripped away from them. And yet that's what we're coming to across the entire planet. I don't have a solution. The only thing I can think of is try to keep ahead of it for as long as you can, but this stuff throws everybody curveballs. I mean, a few years ago people were saying, oh, cashiers and stuff like this will be replaced by AI and robots first. But no, a lot of white collar work has been replaced before the cashiers. Self-checkouts, started becoming a thing, and then there were some problems with those, and then those kind of just balanced out, and you still have cashiers, you still have shelf stockers, we're still going to need janitors, we're still, we're going to need that stuff for a lot longer than we're going to need people whose jobs are to sit at a desk and send emails, or to sit in an office and, change the color of a button on a website, or even things like paralegals, or digital marketers, or virtual assistants. I mean, there are all kinds of things that have been impacted already, and people are just sort of slowly being phased out of them, out of those kinds of jobs in those parts of the economy. So for now, and I know it's not much of a consolation, but maybe try to find some way to stay ahead of it, but it's almost certainly only going to buy you months to years at best. But anyway, I will make some videos about that in the future, because I do actually have a few ideas there, and I think it's worth talking about. It's definitely a pertinent topic. So I don't like to just dwell on things being over and there being no hope or no solution or no way to alleviate things or something. And I really just don't see a lot anytime soon. And maybe somehow all of this stuff with AI and robotics will just sort of be worked into the economy, and there will be big changes, but somehow things flatten out and stabilize, and life will more or less just chug along. I'm saying that there are a lot of indicators, in my opinion, that make it look the opposite, that there's probably not much of a future for humanity at this rate. There are really a lot of topics and tangents that I want to explore, which I will probably do in future videos, because there really is a lot to talk about. But thank you for listening, and please like, share, and subscribe if you wouldn't mind. That would help me out a lot and help me keep doing what I'm doing. And please let us know your thoughts in the comments about all of this. Are things really over, or is there a future to look forward to? Is all of this stuff going to sort of blow over and smooth out over time, or do we have a lot of despair in our future?